I want to welcome everybody to the pilot episode of my series, The Strange and Unexplained of the South Mountains of Western North Carolina. And I'm going to start by telling you the remarkable and unexplained story of survival of this little guy right here. Now, to set the stage for the events that occurred, I'll tell you that I live in the foothills of Western North Carolina, the very first stair step to the Smoky Mountains. This terrain is steep and in places formidable. The creek bottoms and the hollers are deep. We're surrounded by wilderness. There's a lot of wild animals out here too, and also wild dogs. Skoot came to me. This little guy here came to me as a rescue. He was found at a garbage dump. He was cold and wet and malnourished and wormy. He was mostly blind, and at the time he was estimated to be around 15 years old, but he had survived all that, and I was blessed enough to have Skoot come into my life and was able to open my doors to him. But that's not the story I'm wanting to tell tonight. Not at all. I want to tell you a remarkable and unexplained story of how this little guy survived in the rugged wilderness that is around me. You see, about a year and a half ago, this story begins. One day when this little guy got out the door, and I didn't realize he came out. I have a lot of dogs, and sometimes in the rush, a dog will get out that's not supposed to get out. And I didn't realize it. And by the time I realized that Skoot was missing, he had over an hour head start on me. And I knew from previous episodes, when I would let him down to walk outside, that he would always head to the holler across the road from me, which is a deep holler that goes to a big creek. And so that day, I knew which way he had went. And I searched the rest of the day till I didn't have any more daylight left. And the next day, 8 or 9 hours of searching. And then the next day, 8 or 9 hours searching. And honestly, I had given up hope, because by then, Skoot was completely blind and was well more than 15 years old and mostly deaf, had lost all of his teeth. And so he had no way to defend himself, no way to feed himself. And I admit it that I did lose hope. The story picks up on the morning of the 19th day after Skoot had gone missing. A neighbor came to me in my backyard right here where I stand now and said, "I saw your dog in the creek." And I assumed that he meant he saw my dog dead in the creek. He said, "No, your dog's alive." Then I assumed that it was a case of mistaken identity, that he saw a different dog and not mine. But I followed him down there to the spot in the creek, which is a large creek. And there on a sandbar was my little guy Skoot. And I descended that steep bank, and the banks on each side were 8 foot high. I descended that bank and I grabbed this dog up in my arms. It was one of the happiest days of my life. And immediately I noticed two things. First, I noticed that it was odd because there were no footprints, no dog prints in the sand around where Skoot was standing. It was as though he stood motionless for a long period of time because he was completely dry. And also I noticed just a foul stench on my dog. And I'm not talking the dog smell or the dirty dog smell. No, I'm speaking of an indescribable stench. And I made note of those two things. And I brought him back to my house and then had him checked out by the vet. Now, during this 18 going on 19 days, everything in these woods would have wanted to eat this dog. Everything, minus the small rodents. Bobcats, skunks, possums, raccoons, and on up the food chain. And there was no way for this dog to hunt and get meat to sustain him. He should have been dead from starvation. But the vet, remarkably to me, the vet said he's actually gained some weight. I noticed that he was once again able to run. He gets around. He was getting around very good, but he couldn't run. But when I got him back, he was able to run. And the other odd thing was that after he came back from his 18 going on 19 days lost in this wilderness, that none of my other dogs would have anything to do with him. They didn't like him to get near them. So I stand before you today telling you this story, and I've got some theories, and other people has offered some theories. But there's nobody in these woods that would find a dog, feed it, and then let it continue to roam, and then find it again the next day and feed it, and so on and so forth. Most of the neighbors that surround me in this large area are elderly. You won't find them in the woods anyway. But he made it, and something helped him. So what I would like to ask all of y'all to do for this pilot episode of my series, I'd like to hear your thoughts and your comments. I would like to hear any theories you have. And in the very near future, I will be telling you other true tales of the strange and unexplained phenomena of the South Mountains of western North Carolina. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you put some thought into it. And the best is yet to come.